Kelly Ripa had always prided herself on understanding change. She knew the difference between the sudden, sharp demands of live television and the slow erosion of private life under the public eye. But the day Mark was admitted to the hospital, something older than both instincts, something blunter and truer, rose within her and reshaped everything she knew. It began with the call every person dreads, yet secretly hopes is a mistake. One moment, she was rehearsing a segment in her head. The next, she was speeding down a highway, a siren of dread roaring in her chest. Mark had been driving back from a charity event when a delivery truck lost control on a slick stretch of interstate. The kind of accident that leaves only fragments in memory. A flash of brake lights, a metal groan, and then silence. When the ambulance door is shut, and Mark's phone remained alive with his last text, 10 minutes late, Kelly felt the world pressing in around her. He survived the crash. He survived the surgeries. But the victory was fragile. Fractures running like broken grammar through his ribs and spine. A lung that had fought and then surrendered to infection. And a brain study that demanded careful monitoring before any prognosis could be given. Mark lay in the ICU like an actor asked to perform a long silence, a man of gestures whose voice had been replaced by machines and steady beeps. Kelly sat at his bedside, counting each breath the ventilator drew for him, measuring time in mechanical inhales and exhales. The family soon fell into a rhythm of visits and rotations. The kids, raw and resolute, traded shifts at the hospital like vows. Friends called with offers that were both practical and intimate. Meals, laundry, someone to hold a phone while a parent phoned into a work meeting. Kelly managed it all with the efficiency of someone who had always kept many plates spinning at once. Yet the thing that surprised her, and that she only admitted to herself later, was how the hospital had become a new center of gravity in their lives. Home was not home without Mark. The studio felt foreign, stripped of its
Kelly had
usual
always been able
familiarity.
to compartmentalize. There was the bright, public Kelly who tossed jokes like confetti during commercial breaks, and there was the private Kelly who organized birthday surprises and argued gently with Mark about how to stack Tupperware lids. But the first weeks of Mark's hospitalization blurred those compartments. She learned the faces of ICU nurses as easily as the rhythms of the morning show. She memorized surgeons' names with the same ease she memorized script cues. She told herself she could do both, because the public needed continuity, and continuity carried weight. And yet, every morning, before the camera light warmed her cheek, the ache arrived. A small, hot grief that made the world look like a photograph flipped the wrong way. She rehearsed lines in her head, only to let them die, because what she really needed was not to be a host, but a wife at a hospital bedside. Mark would wake from sedation, looking at her with a confusion that cut both ways. He could not understand how he had ended up there. She could not understand how to move through a world that insisted on its rhythms while hers had stopped. The network noticed, of course. Ratings are a machine that demands an operator. Producers floated solutions delicately at first, a reduced schedule, remote appearances. Their sympathy was genuine, up to a point. They were human, after all, but they were also bound to calendars and sponsors who liked anchors who anchored. Kelly tried remote segments, cheerful holding my phone appearances from a hospital sofa, taped interviews where she laughed to reassure viewers that life went on. Her agency sent reminders about brand obligations, philanthropic commitments, and contracts with clauses the size of small novels. There was money, there was responsibility, and there was the image of loyalty to both family and audience. Every time she muted a criticism or turned up the microphone on a joke, a quieter truth nudged her. Every show she had ever done was better because she showed up fully. And yet, could she inhabit both worlds fully at once? The question had the stubbornness of an old bruise. When Mark finally stabilized enough to move from the ICU to a private recovery wing, there was a quiet, pedestrian joy. A room with a better window,
a bed that didn't smell of antiseptic like a church pew. Stabilization, however, was only the beginning.